Chapter 26, Shattered Masks. The necromancer's mask began to slip, like paint peeling from rotting wood. Julian's carefully constructed Lord Malthus persona, cracked under pressure, theatrical authority, dissolving as his synchronized enemies created effects his purchased advantages couldn't counter. Each drain ability that should have weakened opponents instead fed their connection, crimson and silver energies flowing between them with harmony that made his individual enhancements seem hollow by comparison. The obsidian throne room shuddered with impacts that sent stress fractures racing across walls, designed to demonstrate absolute power. Violet energy flickered like failing electronics, while the chamber's malevolent acoustics transformed from intimidating symphony into discord that spoke of systematic failure.
"This isn't possible,"
he snarled, his voice cracking as artificial enhancement wavered beneath mounting desperation.
"You're just players."
The word dripped with contempt mixed with growing incomprehension that made his violet eyes flicker between magical enhancement and very human panic. In Julian's systematic worldview, players were resources to be manipulated through superior advantages. Purchased power, institutional backing, technological enhancement that eliminated any pretense of fair competition. But facing opponents whose strength came from balanced partnership rather than individual excellence, his carefully calculated advantages felt like expensive toys against genuine craftsmanship. Around them, crystal cages containing captured players began developing hairline fractures as his concentration fractured between maintaining necromancer theatrics and confronting mathematical impossibility. Vance's sacrifice mechanics surged beyond safe parameters, his health bar flickering into critical ranges that should have triggered defensive protocols. But Elara's empowerment flowed through their synchronized connection like water finding perfect channel, preventing his abilities from becoming fatal while amplifying their devastating effect. Her fingers wove silver threads through the air with precision that belonged to someone who'd learned to trust completely. Not the rehearsed movements of Rhea Dawn Whisper following scripted interactions, but intuitive synchronization that responded to need rather than performance metrics.
"Different rules,"
Vance said, his voice carrying Death Runner's certainty despite health levels dropping toward digital oblivion. Steam rose from his armor where drain abilities pushed beyond normal limits, but his stance remained steady.
"You've never faced authentic connection."
The observation struck Julian like physical blow. Around them, architectural displays of systematic dominance began showing structural damage as foundations built on predatory psychology proved inadequate against assault that operated through principles his purchased advantages couldn't process. Dust rained from the ceiling as support beams groaned under stress they weren't designed to withstand. The fortress that had seemed impregnable minutes before now trembled like artificial structure exposed to forces that transcended its design parameters.
"I made you,"
he screamed, necromancer theatrics dissolving into entitled shareholder fury that made his voice crack with desperation.
"Your position, your opportunities, everything you are serves my predetermined purpose."
But even as he spoke words designed to reassert systematic control, his borrowed power flickered like enhancement systems, overloaded by variables they weren't designed to process. The illegal modifications pulsing beneath his armor provided individual empowerment. But nothing in his purchased advantages could counter opponents whose abilities grew through balanced exchange rather than resource consumption. Elara moved closer to Vance, her shoulder finding his solid warmth through layers of leather and steel that carried sense of honest work and determination. Their proximity created electrical current that had nothing to do with magical synchronization, recognition that transcended virtual boundaries to anchor them in authentic connection.
You never made anything.
She said, her voice carrying professional certainty backed by personal conviction that months of systematic harassment couldn't eliminate.
You only purchased access to what others created through genuine effort.
The throne room's violet lighting wavered as Julian's concentration shattered between maintaining stolen identity and confronting reality that his systematic advantages were proving meaningless against partnership that grew stronger under pressure. His hired AI advisors whispered increasingly desperate tactical suggestions through neural interfaces. But technological solutions assumed rational opponents who valued self-preservation above authentic purpose.
He's breaking. The Predator's mask is finally dissolving under pressure. It was never designed to withstand.
Around them, hope replaced despair in familiar faces as captured players recognized they were witnessing something their captor had never encountered. Genuine connection that enhanced rather than exploited both participants. Mathematics that Julian's transactional psychology couldn't comprehend or counter through systematic manipulation. The entitled shareholder beneath the Dark Lord's theatrics was finally being exposed. Permadeath stakes that once terrorized others became Vance's greatest weapon against systematic predation that relied on manufactured fear. His Blood Templar abilities pushed toward the absolute edge of character destruction, health levels dropping into ranges where any conventional player would retreat to preserve months of careful progression. The crimson energy blazing from his form created heat that made the air shimmer, while his massive blade carved through necromantic defenses with precision enhanced by desperate purpose. But Deathrunner experience had taught him that survival sometimes required embracing mathematics that rational thinking rejected as impossible. Edge walking through digital territories where one mistake meant permanent deletion, learning to find strength through sacrifice rather than preservation.
Stop.
Julian screamed, his voice losing all pretense of necromantic authority as panic replaced calculated dominance.
You're going to delete yourself. For what? Some NPC's performance contract?
The words carried everything wrong with his understanding of relationships. Transactional thinking that reduced authentic connection to professional service. Systematic predation that couldn't comprehend sacrifice, motivated by genuine care rather than calculated advantage. Sweat beaded on Elara's forehead as she maintained the complex weaving of silver magic that kept Vance's sacrifice, mechanics from becoming fatal. Her breathing had synchronized with his, creating shared rhythm that spoke to connection, transcending individual awareness. Each spell she cast required perfect timing to enhance rather than drain his capacity for further sacrifice. The strain showed in micro-expressions that only careful observation could detect. Slight tremor in her hands as magical energy flowed through patterns more complex than anything she'd attempted. Tightness around her eyes as she processed calculations that meant the difference between victory and losing the only person whose presence made existence worthwhile.
Not performance?
She breathed, her voice carrying weight of recognition that had transformed professional boundaries into something far more substantial.
Partnership.
Her timing was perfect with intuitive precision that belonged to someone who'd learned to trust completely. Not the manufactured responses of premium VR designed to trigger specific reactions, but authentic synchronization that responded to need rather than programmed metrics. Each thread of silver light she wove prevented his sacrifice, mechanics from becoming fatal, while creating balanced circuit that amplified their combined effectiveness. The exchange transformed limitation into tactical opportunity, individual capability into synchronized devastation that Julian's zero-sum worldview couldn't accommodate. The fortress shuddered as its foundations cracked under assault from authentic partnership that created rather than consumed power through genuine connection. Julian's careful architecture, designed to demonstrate absolute power through technological advantage, proved inadequate against balanced exchange that operated through principles his predatory psychology couldn't process. Stone blocks larger than grown men crashed to the obsidian floor with percussion that shook dust from architectural details, carved to intimidate rather than support. The chamber that had seemed eternal minutes before now groaned with systematic failure as purchase dominance proved inadequate against authentic resistance.
You don't understand.
Julian's desperation bled through crumbling necromancer persona, like infection through failing bandages.
I have unlimited resources. Corporate backing. Institutional protection that transcends normal legal boundaries. You can't win against systematic advantages.
But even as he spoke, his illegal modifications flickered like enhancement systems overloaded by variables they weren't designed to process. The violet energy that had blazed with artificial authority now sputtered like dying electronics, while his stolen avatar movements became erratic rather than supernaturally graceful. Vance's willingness to risk permanent deletion for authentic partnership contrasted sharply with Julian's essential selfishness. Predatory obsession that preserved itself while consuming others. Systematic extraction that served individual accumulation rather than mutual flourishing. Around them, crystalline cages began developing stress fractures that spread like spider webs across transparent barriers designed to prevent normal logout functions. The captured players stirred with growing recognition that their rescue was becoming possible through others' sacrifice rather than their own efforts. Together, always together despite systematic pressure, designed to eliminate authentic connection through manufactured isolation. As Vance's health levels approached the point of no return, Elara's perfectly timed intervention created equilibrium that saved him from digital oblivion while maintaining their devastating assault. Her silver magic flowed like healing water through circuits of power that served mutual enhancement rather than individual dominance. The mathematics had changed through variables Julian's comprehensive planning had never included in its calculations, and the new equations pointed toward victory achieved through balanced partnership, rather than purchased advantages that crumbled under authentic scrutiny. Crystal cages shattered like Julian's carefully constructed illusions of control, their destruction creating musical cascades that transformed malevolent acoustics into symphony of liberation. The captured players spilled from their prisons as Lord Malthus's concentration finally collapsed completely. His control systems overloaded by unprecedented resistance that unlimited resources couldn't counter through systematic manipulation. Each barrier that dissolved released someone who'd been trapped between existence and deletion. Digital hostages in campaign of psychological warfare designed to eliminate alternatives through manufactured fear. Elak stumbled forward on legs weakened by imprisonment, his weathered face showing gratitude mixed with amazement that rescue had come through others' sacrifice, rather than institutional intervention. The ranger's eyes carried recognition of something he'd never witnessed despite years of virtual adventures. Authentic partnership that transcended individual capability to achieve impossible victory. Mira gasped as logout functions restored, her avatar no longer suspended in artificial limbo that prevented normal disconnection. The mage's bright spirit blazed brighter as relief flooded through her expression. hope replacing despair that had accumulated during captivity, designed to break psychological resistance through systematic isolation. Thomas pressed his craftsman hands against solid stone floors, grounding himself in sensation after imprisonment that had eliminated normal sensory input. His practiced fingers tested reality like someone checking for structural integrity, confirming that liberation was authentic rather than cruel illusion designed to provide false hope.
How?
He whispered, staring at Vance and Elara, whose synchronized abilities had achieved what conventional heroism never could, through individual excellence or superior resources.
Different mathematics.
Vance replied, though his voice carried exhaustion from pushing abilities beyond any safe threshold. Steam still rose from armor where sacrifice mechanics had blazed beyond normal parameters, but his stance remained steady, despite health levels that flickered near deletion ranges.
Authentic connection instead of individual excellence.
Elara added, her hands steady as she maintained healing magic that anchored him to existence, despite systematic pressure designed to eliminate resistance through permanent consequences. Julian's scream echoed across the crumbling fortress as his carefully constructed world burned around him like artificial enhancement exposed to authentic scrutiny. The obsidian throne split down its center with sound like breaking bones. Architectural symbols of systematic dominance collapsing like purchased power, proving inadequate against genuine partnership. Massive stone blocks crashed from the ceiling while support pillars cracked under stress they'd never been designed to withstand. The chamber that had seemed eternal now groaned with systematic failure as foundations built on predatory psychology proved inadequate against authentic resistance that operated through principles Julian's advantages couldn't counter.
This isn't over.
He raged, necromancer theatrics dissolving completely into entitled shareholder fury that made his voice crack with desperation.
You think this changes anything in the real world? I'll destroy your contracts, your housing, everything you need to survive beyond these virtual boundaries.
But even his threats felt hollow now. Systematic predation revealed as desperate obsession rather than legitimate power that could operate through institutional channels. Around them, the fortress accelerated its final collapse, while architectural displays of purchased dominance crumbled like artificial enhancement exposed to mathematics that served authentic connection rather than individual accumulation. Elara moved to Vance's side, her presence creating warmth that pushed back against the chamber's collapsing architecture. Her hands remained steady as she maintained silver threads of healing magic that had pulled him back from permanent deletion. Not performance designed for validation, but genuine empowerment that served partnership rather than systematic extraction. The scent of him reached her, even through the chaos of architectural collapse. Honest steel and leather work, mixed with determination that belonged to someone who'd risked everything for authentic purpose, rather than individual preservation. His arm found her waist with contact that spoke of mutual support rather than possessive claim.
We need to leave?
She said, helping support his weight as the fortress structure groaned with systematic failure that sent vibrations through stone floors designed to demonstrate permanence. The captured players gathered around them, liberation achieved through others' willingness to sacrifice individual welfare for genuine purpose. Their faces carried amazement at witnessing something Julian's systematic predation had never encountered despite unlimited resources and institutional backing. Genuine relationship that enhanced rather than exploited both participants. Mathematics that operated through principles his predatory psychology couldn't comprehend or eliminate through technological advantage.
The logout points.
Mira said, pointing toward exit portals that were beginning to destabilize as Julian's systematic control completely collapsed under pressure from authentic resistance. Her voice carried urgency mixed with recognition that escape required moving quickly before architectural failure eliminated their opportunity for safe disconnection from virtual space that had become unstable through systematic predation, proving inadequate against balanced partnership. They moved together through corridors that had once displayed Julian's predatory power, now crumbling like purchased dominance, exposed to forces that transcended its design parameters. Behind them, Julian's screams echoed with possessive fury, but his voice was already fading as systematic manipulation proved meaningless against authentic connection that grew stronger through every trial. Dust filled the air while stone fragments rained, from ceiling decorations carved to intimidate rather than support structural integrity. Their footsteps created percussion against floors that cracked under stress, from foundations built on predatory psychology rather than authentic engineering. As they reached the portal threshold, Fonsa's arm tightened around Elara's waist with contact that acknowledged mutual dependence rather than systematic dominance. Not possessive claim, but protective support that served partnership transcending virtual boundaries to become something worth protecting, regardless of personal cost. Their synchronized breathing created rhythm of shared victory, authentic triumph over unlimited resources that had seemed overwhelming when faced alone, but crumbled under assault from balanced exchange that served mutual enhancement rather than individual accumulation.
It's over?
She whispered against his shoulder, feeling solid warmth that anchored her in reality, despite virtual environment that dissolved around them like artificial enhancement exposed to authentic scrutiny.
For now.
His voice carried quiet satisfaction, mixed with realistic awareness that Julian's real-world harassment would likely continue through institutional channels designed to serve systematic predation.
But we proved something important. That systematic advantages couldn't eliminate through pressure or manipulation.
Around them, the liberated players prepared for logout, while the fortress completed its collapse, with sounds like breaking glass and failing electronics. Julian's carefully constructed monument to systematic predatory power was becoming rubble. Architectural symbols of purchased dominance, proving inadequate against authentic connection that had grown stronger through every challenge. The revolution had succeeded through variables Julian's comprehensive planning had never included in its calculations. Not through individual heroism or superior resources, but through balanced partnership that transcended virtual boundaries, to become something substantial enough to change mathematical certainties that rational thinking considered immutable. As they stepped through the portal toward whatever challenges awaited in reality beyond digital mediation, their synchronized footsteps carried rhythm of victory achieved through genuine connection rather than systematic manipulation designed to eliminate alternatives through manufactured dependency. Julian's mask had finally shattered like artificial enhancement, exposed to authentic scrutiny. And rising from its fragments, partnership that had proven stronger than unlimited resources deployed through institutional predation designed to serve individual accumulation rather than human flourishing. The mathematics had changed permanently through forces that couldn't be purchased or eliminated through systematic pressure. Some victories could only be achieved together, through authentic connection that served mutual enhancement rather than predatory consumption that Julian's psychology demanded from every relationship. Chapter 27. New Growth. The obsidian fortress crumbled like artificial dreams exposed to daylight, each fragment singing as it dissolved into silver motes that danced on warming wind. Digital dust rose in spirals where Julian's monument to systematic predation had stretched toward corrupted skies only moments before. The air itself tasted different now, metallic tang of necromantic corruption giving way to something clean that made breathing easier. Each dissolving stone carried whispers of purchased power, proving hollow when faced with authentic partnership. Vance stood amid the settling ruins, his armor bearing fresh scars from sacrifice pushed beyond any threshold rational thinking would accept. Steam still rose from metal plates where crimson energy had blazed beyond safe parameters. But his stance remained steady, despite health levels that flickered near deletion ranges. Where individual excellence might have led to permanent character loss, their synchronized abilities had created something unprecedented. Victory achieved through balanced partnership rather than purchased dominance. The northern wastes stretched around them in transformation, corrupted ground beginning to heal as necromantic taint dissipated like morning fog before honest sunlight. Grass pushed through soil that had pulsed with malevolent hunger minutes before. Green shoots that spoke of natural processes reclaiming territory from systematic predation.
They're fleeing.
Elara's voice carried wonder as she watched cultists scatter across the healing landscape without their necromancer lord to provide direction. The robed figures moved with purposeless haste, their dark rituals abandoned, now that Julien's carefully constructed identity had met permanent deletion. Some stumbled over terrain that no longer responded to necromantic commands. Others cast aside ritual implements that had lost their artificial potency, obsidian daggers and corrupted crystals becoming ordinary materials without systematic power to animate them. Without predatory obsession to organize their activities, they became merely confused players, whose allegiance had been purchased rather than earned through authentic conviction. Their panic felt almost pathetic after the overwhelming threat they'd represented under Julian's systematic coordination.
Let them run.
Vance's voice carried exhausted satisfaction rather than vindictive triumph, words shaped by vocal cords that had screamed commands during combat that pushed every limit.
Without their systematic advantages, they're just lost people who made poor choices.
Around them, the crystal cages that had once held captives continued cracking with sounds like breaking ice. Julian's control systems completely collapsed under pressure they'd never been designed to withstand. Each barrier that dissolved released someone who'd been trapped between existence and deletion. Digital hostages in campaign of psychological warfare designed to eliminate alternatives through manufactured fear. Elak stumbled forward on legs weakened by prolonged imprisonment, his avatar showing stress fractures from suspension between states that no virtual system should have maintained. The ranger's weathered face carried gratitude mixed with disbelief, recognition that rescue had come through others' sacrifice rather than institutional intervention. Mira followed with tears streaming down her face as logout functions restored her agency, bright spirit blazing brighter as relief flooded through her expression. The mage's hands shook as she tested her restored abilities, silver sparks dancing between her fingers, like celebration of freedom reclaimed through authentic partnership rather than individual heroism. Thomas emerged with quiet dignity intact, despite months of systematic abuse, his merchant's pragmatism processing liberation through practical assessment of changed circumstances. The craftsman's eyes carried new understanding of what genuine connection could achieve when it transcended individual limitation through balanced exchange.
How?
Elak whispered, staring at Vance and Elara, who whose synchronized abilities had achieved what conventional heroism never could have accomplished through individual excellence or superior resources.
Different mathematics.
Vance's words carried weight that transcended tactical analysis. Recognition that their victory belonged to principles Julian's systematic approach couldn't comprehend.
Authentic connection instead of purchased power.
The liberated players gathered closer, their faces showing amazement at witnessing something Julian's predatory psychology had never encountered despite unlimited resources and institutional backing. Genuine relationship that enhanced rather than exploited both participants. Mathematics that operated through balanced exchange rather than systematic extraction. Their gratitude felt substantial rather than performed. Recognition that freedom had been achieved through others' willingness to risk permanent deletion for authentic purpose rather than individual preservation. The emotion carried weight that no premium enhancement could simulate. Honest appreciation for sacrifice that served genuine, rather than manufactured connection. As silver light continued replacing the fortress's former darkness, the space transformed from monument to obsession into celebration ground, where victory belonged to partnership rather than individual dominance. The healing landscape stretched clean and promising, corruption dissipating like artificial enhancement exposed to authentic scrutiny. Together, always together despite systematic pressure designed to eliminate exactly such connections through manufactured isolation. In the ruins of Julian's carefully constructed empire, they had proven that some battles could only be won through balanced sacrifice, genuine empowerment that served love rather than systematic predation designed to eliminate human agency through purchased dominance. Their kiss tasted of triumph and freedom, lips meeting amid falling ash that transformed into silver light as it touched their joined forms. The contact sent electricity through every nerve, but this time enhanced by synchronized energies that had grown through trials into something that transcended virtual boundaries entirely. Not performance designed for Julian's validation or tactical necessity for combat effectiveness, but authentic connection that belonged entirely to their own choices. Elara's hands found the solid warmth of his chest, feeling heartbeat that hammered with genuine emotion rather than programmed responses designed to maintain engagement metrics. The scent of him filled her awareness until breathing became easier, despite the settling dust around them. Honest steel and leather work mixed with exhaustion that belonged to someone who'd risked everything for authentic purpose rather than individual advancement.
It's over.
The words emerged against his mouth, her voice carrying wonder that systematic predation could be defeated through balanced partnership rather than purchased advantages that had seemed overwhelming when faced alone.
For now.
Vance's arms tightened around her with protective intensity that spoke of love rather than possession, recognition that their connection had evolved beyond tactical convenience into something worth protecting, regardless of personal cost.
But we proved something important that systematic manipulation couldn't eliminate.
His voice carried undertones that belonged to vocal cords shaped by real experience, harmonic complexity that no artificial audio could replicate with such authentic variation. The warmth of his breath against her skin created sensations that transcended haptic programming through genuine physical connection that existed beyond digital mediation. Around them, the rescued players prepared for journey back to Blackridge, their conversations carrying excitement that would spread through Covenant's communication channels, like wildfire spreading through dry grass. Word of Lord Malthus's fall, the Blood Templar who danced on deletion's edge, authentic partnership proving superior to unlimited resources deployed through systematic institutional predation. Stories that would reshape how others understood the mathematics of survival and permanent consequence. Environments where death carried weight that transcended simple character restoration. Their victory would become legend that inspired others to seek authentic connection rather than individual excellence through purchased advantages.
Together,
She said, not question but statement of recognition that their connection had evolved beyond virtual boundaries to become something substantial enough to change mathematical certainties that rational thinking considered immutable. The silver light continued spreading across healing landscape, transforming corrupted territory into clean ground where authentic choices could flourish without interference from systematic monitoring or manufactured dependency. Behind them, the last fragments of Julian's obsidian architecture dissolved into digital dust that would be reclaimed by Covenant's natural systems. Systematic predation returning to raw data that served no individual's purchased dominance, artificial enhancement dissipating like morning fog, before honest sunlight that revealed the authentic landscape Julian's corruption had hidden beneath theatrical displays of power. As they walked toward Blackridge with liberated allies whose gratitude felt substantial rather than performed, their synchronized footsteps created rhythm of shared victory across ground that pulsed with returning life. Not individual heroism, but balanced partnership, authentic connection that had proven stronger than institutional advantages backed by unlimited resources. The celebration would continue in Blackridge's welcoming streets, but their greatest triumph remained private. Recognition that genuine love offered advantages systematic manipulation could never anticipate or counter through technological enhancement or economic pressure designed to eliminate alternatives. In space where falling ash became silver light that danced around their joined forms, they had discovered that authentic connection transcended virtual boundaries to become something worth any sacrifice that preservation above purpose would demand. The mathematics had changed permanently through variables that couldn't be purchased or eliminated through systematic pressure applied by institutional advantages. Some victories belonged only to those willing to risk everything for genuine partnership rather than individual preservation that served extraction above authentic growth. Above them, clean skies stretched where corruption had once twisted toward artificial enhancement that served obsession rather than human flourishing. The northern wastes breathed with natural rhythms, healing from systematic predation through processes that served authentic growth, rather than purchased power designed to eliminate exactly such organic development. Julian's carefully constructed world had burned completely, leaving no trace of systematic predation that had seemed so overwhelming when faced through individual resistance. Rising from its ashes, love that had proven superior to unlimited resources, deployed through institutional advantages designed to eliminate exactly such authentic connections through manufactured dependency. Blackridge's celebration faded behind crystalline walls that sang with harmonic resonance, the tower's magical architecture responding to emotion rather than manufactured necessity. Elara led Vance through spiraling chambers that pulsed with energy attuned to authentic feeling rather than systematic control. Her fingers traced along crystal formations that had once served professional relationships, past workstations where performance had been measured through engagement metrics, toward spaces where genuine connection could be explored without obligation to external validation. The tower's crystals hummed with frequencies that made her magical senses tingle with recognition of authentic rather than artificial enhancement. Each step upward carried them further from territories where systematic monitoring could reach, deeper into architectural impossibility designed to serve intimate connection rather than professional performance.
here,
The word emerged as whisper against crystal that dissolved at her approach, wall becoming doorway that led toward privacy Julian's surveillance had never been able to penetrate. The chamber beyond existed in space where light bent according to mystical laws that served authentic desire rather than systematic control, designed to eliminate alternatives through manufactured scarcity. Crystalline formations created natural furniture, while bioluminescent elements provided illumination that felt warm rather than artificial, colors that responded to emotion rather than programmed sequences. Vance's presence filled the intimate space with warmth that made breathing easier, his scent of honest work and determined purpose creating atmosphere more intoxicating than any premium enhancement could simulate through artificial manipulation. The air itself seemed to pulse with recognition of authentic connection that transcended virtual programming through genuine physical presence. When his hands found her face, the contact sent familiar electricity racing through her skin, but enhanced by synchronized abilities that had grown beyond combat effectiveness into intimate harmony that belonged entirely to chosen intimacy rather than manufactured requirement.
No performance.
He said quietly, recognition that this space belonged entirely to their authentic choices, rather than professional obligations designed to serve systematic extraction above human connection.
Just us.
Her voice carried liberation that expressed itself through genuine desire rather than manufactured requirement. Freedom from systematic pressure that had shaped every interaction, from months of careful professional survival. Steam rose from armor still warm from sacrifice, mechanics pushed beyond safe parameters, metal and leather that told stories of real struggle rather than purchased advancement. When her fingers found the clasps that held his protection in place, each piece that fell away revealed skin marked by authentic effort rather than artificial enhancement. The tower's crystals began singing with resonant joy as their abilities created harmonies that transcended virtual programming through genuine physical connection that existed beyond digital mediation. Light danced in patterns that served authentic beauty rather than systematic intimidation. Architectural celebration of union that had proven stronger than unlimited resources. Their synchronized powers hummed beneath the surface as clothing dissolved like morning mist, barriers becoming memory rather than obstacle to connection that had grown through trials into something worth protecting. Regardless of systematic pressure designed to eliminate exactly such authentic bonds. When they moved together in rhythms older than virtual worlds, magic flowed between them like liquid starlight. Crimson and silver energies dancing in intimate choreography that made the chamber's crystalline formations pulse with reflected emotion. Each touch enhanced by synchronized abilities that served love rather than tactical necessity. Her hands traced patterns across skin that felt more real than any premium enhancement. His touch created pathways of sensation that transcended virtual boundaries through genuine physical connection. Warmth that belonged to someone who'd learned to find strength through sacrifice rather than preservation. The synchronized abilities that had defeated systematic predation now enhanced intimate connection, creating feedback loops that amplified authentic pleasure rather than manufactured response designed to maintain engagement metrics. Each sensation carried weight of genuine emotion rather than programmed reaction, calculated to serve extraction above human flourishing. The tower itself seemed to celebrate their union, crystalline walls singing harmonies that responded to emotions transcending virtual limitations entirely. Light bent and flowed in patterns that served authentic beauty rather than artificial enhancement, creating atmosphere where genuine love could flourish without interference from systematic monitoring or performance requirements. As their connection deepened beyond anything virtual boundaries could contain, the chamber filled with silver and crimson auroras that painted their joined forms in colors that spoke of authentic rather than purchased enhancement. Their synchronized breathing created rhythms that the tower's crystals translated into music, harmonies that celebrated genuine connection rather than systematic manipulation. Time moved differently in chambers where authentic emotion shaped reality. According to principles that transcended virtual programming designed to serve extraction rather than human flourishing. Their union became dance of synchronized abilities, expressing themselves through intimate connection that belonged entirely to genuine choice rather than manufactured requirement. When exhaustion finally claimed them, they rested in each other's arms while crystalline formations continued their gentle harmonies around forms that spoke of authentic rather than artificial connection. The tower pulsed with contentment that celebrated love rather than performed intimacy, architectural recognition of partnership that had transcended virtual boundaries. Around them, bioluminescent elements painted their joined forms with light that responded to emotion rather than programmed sequences designed to trigger specific responses. The air carried scents of crystal growth and natural processes rather than artificial atmospheres manufactured to simulate authentic experience through technological enhancement. In crystalline chambers where light served love rather than systematic control, they had found victory that no enemy could purchase, or systematic predation could eliminate through institutional advantages. Genuine connection had proven superior to unlimited resources, authentic love transcending every artificial boundary Julian's obsession had tried to impose through manufactured dependency. The revolution was complete, through variables that couldn't be calculated within systems designed to serve extraction above human flourishing. Not through individual heroism or purchased advantages, but through authentic partnership that had transcended virtual boundaries to become something substantial enough to change mathematical certainties. Together, they had proven that some victories belonged only to genuine connection, rather than systematic manipulation, designed to eliminate exactly such authentic bonds through artificial scarcity and manufactured isolation. The mathematics had changed permanently. And in chambers where crystals sang with joy rather than systematic intimidation, love had proven stronger than every advantage unlimited resources could provide.